So we're introducing a new chapter today. It's chapter 24. We're going to read the introduction and then go into section 1 of chapter 24. The title of the whole chapter is The Goal of Specialness. And I think it's safe to say by the end of this chapter, you'll know more about specialness than you ever wanted to know. I thought what we'd do is we'd read through the introduction first, and then we'd pause for a prayer and read the first section. So we're going to jump right into the introduction here. Thank you, David, for your help.
Forget not that the motivation for this course is the attainment and the keeping of the state of peace. Given this state, the mind is quiet, and the condition in which God is remembered is attained. It is not necessary to tell him what to do. He will not fail. Where he can enter, there he is already. And can it be he cannot enter where he wills to be? Peace will be yours because it is his will. Can you believe a shadow can hold back the will that holds the universe secure? God does not wait upon illusions to let him be himself, no more his son. They are. And what illusion that idly seems to drift between them has the power to defeat what is their will?
So there's a couple themes right here in the beginning. And the first is, what is the motivation for this course? The attainment and keeping of the state of peace. And so frequently people asked me questions about what does the course have to say about this topic or that. And in many cases, the course has no opinion on other matters because its goal is the attainment and keeping of the state of peace in your mind, a quiet state of mind. And other matters are outside the goal of this course. They're outside the curriculum. There's no opinion stated. So remember, the goal is attaining peace and keeping peace. And particularly as we learn the details of that means there are conditions that you have to fulfill in order to attain peace of mind. So the course helps us to meet those conditions necessary for the peace of mind. So there's that message. The other one, which will become more clear as we get into the section, has to do with more of an existential question, which is, where is God? Where are you? And all that has to do with, how do you think of yourself? How do you view your life and where you are? And of course, there are many ways to answer that. The course will say that you are a part of God and that he is right here, and that his plan for your life is already gifted to you. You need not ask for anything additional from him, but you might have to remove any obstacles that are in your thinking and feeling and belief system. And so when we get into the goal of specialness, we'll realize there are these obstacles. We had no idea. There are these obstacles in our minds that we could think of them as shadows that seem to hold us back from the gift of the universe. Of course, they are not. They don't really hold us back, but we allow them to interfere with our understanding, our beliefs, our decisions. And as a result of our allowing that, giving our power to it, they do hold us back. Okay, so we're going to go on, David.
To learn this course requires willingness to question every value that you hold. Not one can be kept hidden and obscure, but it will jeopardize your learning. No belief is neutral. Everyone has the power to dictate each decision you make. For a decision is a conclusion based on everything that you believe. It is the outcome of belief and follows it as surely as does suffering follow guilt and freedom sinlessness. There is no substitute for peace. What God creates has no alternative. The truth arises from what He knows, and your decisions come from your beliefs as certainly as all creation rose in His mind because of what He knows.
So there's a scheme here about values and beliefs and decisions, and we will cover this again in a few moments, but it's important. This forms the foundation of the theory behind how we heal. And so it begins with a willingness to question every value that you hold. It's the idea the world has taught you values, points of view that interfere with your peace of mind. We can think of it as living in a world of chaos. We acquired some chaotic ideas and they interfere with our peace of mind. So willingness to question these long-held values is essential. That determines, my observation is the people that stay with this course are the ones that are willing to question those values. And other people encounter this and they just aren't willing to do that at this time, so they move on. Well, but within the framework of the course, these values, which involve a set of beliefs of what you believe to be valuable, what you believe to be true, these values have power to dictate your decisions because your decisions stem from the beliefs that you hold to be true. And so that affects your relationships, that affects your behaviors, that affects the situations you find yourself in because of the beliefs that got you there. So I tried to summarize this. Values, when they are hidden and obscure, interfere with your learning. So our goal is to not let them hide and remain obscured. Beliefs have the power to dictate decisions, particularly hidden beliefs, beliefs of which you're not even conscious of, such as your belief in specialness. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, this is our topic. A hidden belief in special people, specialness, and then decisions as a result of those hidden beliefs, decisions, conclusions you make and act upon from those hidden beliefs. So that's an intro to the chapter. Before we go any further into section 1, I'd like to invite you to join me in a moment of prayer. So, Holy Spirit, with your help, we're recognizing there are these hidden beliefs, and little did we know that they have power to direct our decisions, and we would bring the light forward and take these obscured beliefs and bring them into the light so that they no longer are hidden. We trust that it will be obvious what to do then when the light has come in front of these hidden beliefs. So we thank you for the way in which you bring our healing to our mind through this simple reading here. Thank you, sweet Spirit. Amen and amen. So that leads us into section 1, which is specialness. Notice the title. A hidden belief in specialness becomes a substitute for love. The broad thesis was that every human being has at one time or another had a hidden belief in specialness, and therefore that became a barrier or an obstruction for love. So I'm going to outline some of the ideas. You've seen some of them already about values and hidden values interfering with learning, about beliefs and hidden beliefs, particularly with respect to this chapter, the hidden belief in specialness. By the way, that can be thinking yourself special or somebody else special. And then the decisions that are based upon all these hidden beliefs. Imagine your life being directed by a set of beliefs that you didn't know were there. That's not freedom. So it says that an unrecognized belief is a decision for conflict, for war in secret, where the results of the conflict are kept unknown. This is the unconscious life. This is doing things and saying things, believing things without any understanding whatsoever. And then the hidden belief actually is often defended and protected. It's a type of misplaced faith in a set of beliefs which are not clear to your conscious mind. And so the Course calls specialness the great dictator of wrong decisions, belief in specialness. And all this is a way of interfering with love. And so the idea is anything that holds back your love means that you're loveless, and then in rushes the opposition, the laws of chaos, a sense of conflict and threat and attack. So let's understand what we mean by specialness. It's the idea, it's a perception, it's an error in perception of seeing differences in other people where we then think of higher and lower, better or worse, guilty or innocent type of distinctions. There's always a judgment that the mind draws, a conclusion based upon seeing that difference. And this includes the idea of believing that there's people that are special, and the one that's so easy to understand is I'm right and you're wrong. There would be a good example of it. In this matter that we just hypothetically, are disagreeing with I'm right, you're wrong. That's I'm special, I'm better, I'm more clear, you're less clear. So all that, why is that a barrier to love? Because in truth, we're created equal. We share the same purpose, and we are in spirit the same. Now, I know there's probably aspects to what we've just said that aren't clear yet, but hopefully in 2 or 3 slides, all this will be very clear. So we'll go on with section 1.
Love is extension. To withhold the smallest gift is not to know love's purpose. Love offers everything forever. Hold back but one belief, one offering, and love is gone because you asked a substitute to take its place. And now must war, the substitute for peace, come with the one alternative that you can choose for love. Your choosing it has given it all the reality it seems to have.
So let's try to make sure this makes perfect sense if it doesn't on the first reading. So when we say love, let's talk about eternal, unconditional, perfect love, the Creator's love. Love is intended to create and extend to everything, to infinity, and for eternity. And the opposite of that is a withholding, a holding back, like there's not enough. It's a sense of scarcity. Sin is the idea of lack of love. So to withhold the smallest gift is to not understand the intent and purpose of this perfect unconditional love. So we're talking more than love as it's often used in songs or poems. We're talking the highest concept of love that offers everything and forever. And then the ego's concept of holding back and withholding because of sense of lack, or it can either hold back because I'm feeling lacking, or possibly because I feel the other person's not worthy of love, which implies a judgment. So I'm special, they're not. Feel free to make comments or questions if you have any. If not, we'll move on through these first slides.
Beliefs will never openly attack each other because conflicting outcomes are impossible. But an unrecognized belief is a decision to war in secret, where the results of conflict are kept unknown and never brought to reason to be considered sensible or not. And many senseless outcomes have been reached, and meaningless decisions have been made and kept hidden, to become beliefs now given power to direct all subsequent decisions. Mistake you not the power of these hidden warriors to disrupt your peace, for it is at their mercy while you decide to leave it there. The secret enemies of peace, your least decision to choose attack instead of love, unrecognized and swift to challenge you to combat and to violence, far more inclusive than you think, are there by your election. Do not deny their presence nor their terrible results. All that can be denied is their reality, but not their outcome.
So deep, so profound. So let's back up and understand the role of beliefs for a second. In heaven, meaning in that state, of perfect oneness where forgiveness is complete and peace endures constantly, there's no beliefs. Because beliefs are a substitute for love. They're a way of keeping the mind occupied with thoughts that are made in time, and therefore all beliefs are but merely stepping stones that we get rid of. They're scaffolding before we enter into the higher state. In the meantime, we all live by beliefs. Okay, so in the meantime, in time, and some of them are unrecognized, however, they're subterranean beliefs, in beliefs of inferiority and superiority, perhaps. Whatever form they may take matters not. And they always, that results in, they're essentially judgments that pit one idea against another and say, oh, given two illusions, this is the illusion I believe in, and I don't believe in the other illusion. And so we call it, it's a war in secret, where conflict is kept unknown and never brought to, these are unrecognized beliefs. When they are brought into the light, this all changes. But before they're brought into the light, they're never brought to reason and never even considered whether they make sense or not. And we're going to find specialness is a widely held belief that makes no sense, and yet senseless outcomes have been reached because of the belief in specialness, and decisions have been made without your consciously realizing it. They're kept hidden and then are given power to form attitudes which persist over time. So all human beings engage in this, by the way. These enemies to peace are not unique to any one of us, but to all of us. And so we are given a healing plan to overcome this, which this whole chapter is about how to free ourselves from these enemies of peace. How to redirect our power away from the enemies of peace and towards peace itself. Susie?
I mean, I can't wait to read this chapter. You know, I was raised with total specialness. My sister was the inferior one, and I was the superior one. This is what my parents told us and treated us that way. And it had so many profound, awful effects, because my sister felt worthless and I felt special. And because of that, I felt like there were so many effects of that. I felt like I always had to be amazing to live up to my specialness, created so much turmoil. And in the beginning, like you said, it was hidden. I didn't understand it until I understood it, which was probably during the 12-step phase, you know, and during really understanding, and in a perverse way, when I was so identified with my ego and all of that, I liked being the well child and not the sick child. And it just went on and on and on and on. And, you know, it had such awful consequences for all of us. And so I can really, really relate to this. And I'm grateful to really know I'm not special and that it was just something that I was taught. So I'm really looking forward to this chapter because my sister and I had this journey for many, many, many years.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Susie, for your testimony there. And these unrecognized sense of specialness can take many forms and of inequality. It can be with regards to rich versus poor, economic disparity. It certainly can take the form related to skin pigmentation, skin color, and it can even take the form of my country versus their country, which is a very popular topic during times of war. And I don't want to make political comments. I'm sorry for that. So it can take many forms, which are like our group is better than that group. Our neighborhood is the nice neighborhood, and the other, that person you're thinking about dating comes from the other neighborhood. All kinds of forms, you know what I'm referring to. Wherever specialness forms, it's a secret enemy of peace because it stands for the opposite of equality. David?
All that is ever cherished as a hidden belief, to be defended though unrecognized, is faith in specialness. This takes many forms, but always clashes with the reality of God's creation and with the grandeur that he gave his son. What else could justify attack? For who could hate someone whose self is his and whom he knows? Only the special could have enemies, for they are different and not the same. And difference of any kind imposes orders of reality and a need to judge that cannot be escaped.
So this final statement, we're talking about the difference between equality and inequality. Differences of any kind imply a hierarchy, an order of reality, and then judgment follows of where you fit on that hierarchy. It's a natural extension. So I want to attempt to illustrate this using a visual format here. So very simply, there are three levels: body, mind, and spirit. We're not even going to define what we mean by them here. But we will remember that the chapter 1 of the textbook, principle 23, says that miracles rearrange perception and place the levels of perception in true perspective, which heals at all levels, because sickness comes from confusing the levels. This is also known as level confusion. Sickness of the mind, all sick thinking, false beliefs. I take this literally. Sickness comes from confusing the levels. So now we need to unpack this a little bit more, because this is the basis of all confusion. There are three levels: body, mind, and spirit. We're not saying that the spirit is the same as the body, or the body is the same as the mind, or the mind is the same as the spirit. What we are saying is that all spirits are the same, are equal. And if you can believe that a perfect spirit created by God is equal to all other perfect spirits, perhaps you can believe that all minds are the same. Now, we're not talking about brains or intellects here. We're talking about a gift of the mind from the Holy Spirit, that all minds are one and the same. And if you can allow that thought in your mind, maybe you can see that all bodies fundamentally are the same. They're all flesh and blood. They all have DNA and humans. Matter of fact, they know that of your DNA, your genome, only 1% is different from person to person. So those are all the same, but here's the mistake that people make in level confusion. They fail to recognize that the spirit is different from the mind and different from the body. And as a result of this level confusion, it attributes things that belong to the body, it attributes them to the mind. Or it takes properties that belong to the spirit, which was created perfect, and attributes that to the mind. And so it fails to make the distinction. And so miracles heals all that. That's the problem, confusion of those levels. Miracles rearranges our perception, places the spirit, mind, and body in different levels at the proper level of perception, true perspective, and that heals the mind. It removes level confusion. So I did all that because you need to recognize what's different and what's the same. Any difference of any kind between one mind and another mind and another mind imposes an order of reality and a set of judgment that is the basis of all our sickness. Comments or questions on any of that? This is abstract but vital, because level confusion is the basis of all confusion. Brett, you're on mute, but go ahead. See if I can. Did that help? You're still on mute. There you go.
Can you give an example of how a sickness occurs from level confusion?
Yeah. So all right. Let's say in my mind, Brett, I feel overwhelmed and despairing, and I'm about to give up, meaning I don't want to live anymore. Now, is that a problem with my body or my spirit? No, that's a problem with my mind. So we know where the proper level where that's at. But what will they do to me? They'll give me pharmaceuticals to deal with that, which are going to change my chemistry for sure, change my neurochemistries. But is that going to heal me? No, that's not going to heal me. So it's taking a substance, a solution that applies to the body level, change body chemistry in order to deal with a problem that has its source at the other level. And so, Brett, there are thousands of these forms. I don't know that I gave you the best one here. but maybe we could give the children Ritalin to make them calm down.
Perfect example. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's level confusion. Now, once you get this idea, Brett, then everything makes perfect sense. If I am in the kitchen preparing dinner and I cut my finger and it starts to bleed, I don't need to pray for my finger right in that moment. I need to stop the bleeding. I need to treat the body, right? The solution needs to be on the level on which the problem exists, not trying to use some kind of other level to heal a problem that exists on the body level. And there are multiple variations of this because the spirit can be confused with the mind with the body. The biggest one of all in our world, Brett, is confusion of mind and body. Problems in the mind being fixed by the body. So if I'm depressed, well, let's go to a spa and get a massage, but that's not going to take care of my depression. But that'd be really nice for my body at the time. So those are examples of it. And there's many more. I probably haven't been that articulate here, but you get the idea.
Thank you.
Ritalin for the children is probably illustrates it as well as anything. And I'm not against pharmaceuticals, by the way. I think they have their role, but we need to understand what we're really trying to do. Okay, so what is different and what is the same? We need to be clear on that, because specialness, if you look at another, okay, well, we'll uncover more as we go. I don't want to give it away. David?
What God created cannot be attacked, for there is nothing in the universe unlike itself. But what is different calls for judgment, and this must come from someone better, someone incapable of being like what he condemns, above it, sinless by comparison with it. And thus does specialness become a means and end at once. For specialness not only sets apart, but serves as grounds from which attack on those who seem beneath the special one is natural and just. The special ones feel weak and frail because of differences, for what would make them special is their enemy. Yet they protect its enmity and call it friend. On its behalf, they fight against the universe, for nothing in the world they value more. Now, I have a question, that comment that was on the previous stuff too.
Yeah.
It's very easy to conceive spirit, all spirits are the same. It's very easy to conceive in a generalization, all minds are the same, and all bodies are the same. But it's also apparent in the physical plane that people can do special things with their bodies and with their minds that others cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all that is an illusion in terms of spiritual vision, but it still seems to be a reality on this plane. It's just, that's it.
Yeah, actually, this is addressed, David, in the course and encouraged. They refer to it as abilities. So in your profession, David, you developed abilities that none of the rest of us have. Only someone in your profession would have that ability, which is a skill that you invested years of time in cultivating. And that ability can make a big difference for people. That's a good thing. And the course encourages us to develop our abilities, in particularly the ability, in this case, to remove the obstacles that cause your mind to be in chaos, but it is pro development for abilities, especially the ones that help you move out of chaos and conflict. Matter of fact, we would say, David, as people are in this program for months and years, they're developing their abilities to use these materials as a form of for their healing. And not only for their own healing, but for the healing of the people they encounter. So all that, as you said, is within the framework of time, but we would expect it's probably different in some kind of eternity framework that is beyond time. So we don't need to be concerned for that right now. Pretty sure the course says we'll all have the same abilities in eternity. But in time, there's a differentiation of abilities. And the most important one is your ability to let love. So here's one to speak to everybody here. The gift of unconditional love has been given to you by your spiritual nature. You have it already. But do you have the ability to let it flow out into situations that your mind is not fond of, or where your mind has a tendency to judge? Have you developed the ability to rise above the battlefield, set aside your past conditioned beliefs, and rise above the battlefield and still bring complete forgiveness to that situation? It's an ability that you need to develop. And the more you practice it, the more comfortable you get with it, and the easier it becomes, until the point, David, where many things, I think you testify to this in your own thing, it almost becomes unconscious. I know how to do this. I've done this so many times. It comes easy. It's like driving back to your house. You don't need to think about the route and how you're going to get there. It's semi-conscious. So yes, there is a differentiation of abilities here. And the next level with that is, what is the role of judgment with those different abilities? The ego, so we'll look at it from two angles, two different people with an ability. So I'm going to say a 6-year-old and an 18-year-old have different abilities to navigate within the world. And the ego would view one as being beneath the other, one as being greater or more special. Whereas spirit would, while recognizing the abilities may be different, would not judge that 6-year-old for their lack of ability in that area. They would choose to withhold judgment. Now, I'm using an easy example here. It's easy to understand how you wouldn't judge a 6-year-old compared to an 18-year-old. But these are the subtle distinctions that I think speak to your question. Did you have a follow-up, David, on that? Kim?
It helps me right now with this text to kind of substitute specialness. When I see specialness, if I just substitute ego there, it's clearer for me. Specialness is a word that can create confusion. So if I just stick with ego there, it's much easier, much easier.
You go, Kim. Whatever word that those kind of substitutions often allow us to move forward and get beyond the words that might, because you're right, specialness has meaning in different contexts. All right, we're going to go on.
Specialness.
Before we do, I'm going to give Susie a chance to comment.
Can you go back to that paragraph? Because you never really unpacked it, and I want to just say something about it.
Oh, where were we? Here?
This is incredible to me. The special ones feel weak and frail because of differences, for what would make them special is their enemy. So we were just talking about level confusion, and because I was so special, right? And my mind was so sick and messed up. I mean, I've shared this. So I hurt my body and tore my rotator cuff in yoga because I had to be amazing and do all the postures, you know, to get all that special praise. And so the specialness that was, you know, I was raised with and came to believe in the story about myself is really my enemy. And, you know, that's a perfect example for me of level confusion. My mind was sick and I hurt my body. Anyway, that just jumped out at me a lot.
Yeah. It's a really good example, Brett, because you asked the question about example. I will tell you, like throughout life, I've had injuries. Every single injury, my mind told my body what to do, and it got injured. Every single time that I could, in all my serious injuries, I put myself in that situation and it didn't work out and I got injured. Well, there's a deeper lesson in all that. The mind driving the body beyond its limits, putting it in situations that were risky, yeah. So, wow, I wish, you know, I wish I had, well, that was the way I had to learn. I think being a boy, an adventurous boy might be part of that script. You had your hand up, Brett?
Right. Let me see mine. So I did the same thing in yoga. I injured myself because I had to be the best in the class. But what I was thinking of is a couple of years ago, I was on 95 driving to work and I got rear-ended and it really messed up my back. So that was an accident. So it's just interesting how some people would think that that was meant to happen and that somehow I drew that experience into my life. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to go that far there, unless you were driving recklessly.
I wasn't.
Right. All right, we'll
But
take
I
one
can
more.
really relate to the ego and the body and all that. Definitely.
Example with yoga, I know so many people that will tell me they did that with yoga. David, you had a comment?
You know, even more so than bodily things, I have made decisions in my life and in the direction of my life based on judgment and specialness, feeling that, you know, wanting a special result, and have made decisions that have not been in concert with this, what would be best for me spiritually.
Mm.
And part of this course for me is trying to learn how to think differently so that I can make decisions differently. And that's why I really am enjoying this particular chapter as it relates to that.
Thank you. I'm going to tell one more story because it's not a body story. In 2008, prices of property in Palm Beach County were there were stories of people making $100,000 and turning over a place in 2 months, and property prices, prices were going up with like crazy. And I remember standing in line when this community was going to open up for sale so that I could buy one of the condos there. And we felt like we were special. We were privileged. We were getting in there early at this price. It was all going to go up in months, and we were all going to, add greatly to our financial wealth. None of that had to do particularly with my body, but it was definitely a belief in the mind. And it all came crashing down. It was a different kind of experience there, totally in the mind, driven by specialness, feeling like we were privileged to have gotten in when we did. All right, so enough for stories. We'll let David read.
Specialness is the great dictator of the wrong decisions. Here is the grand illusion of what you are and what your brother is. And here is what must make the body dear and worth preserving. Specialness must be defended. Illusions can attack it, and they do. For what your brother must become to keep your specialness is an illusion. He who is worse than you must be attacked so that your specialness can live on his defeat. For specialness is triumph, and its victory is his defeat and shame. How can he live with all your sins upon him? And who must be his conqueror but you?
So remember, specialness is the enemy of love. Its purpose for ego is to interfere with the flow of love from you to others, interfere with relationships. And I think Susie illustrated this in testifying about her and her sister. For what your brother must become to keep your specialness, the other person must become an illusion of inferiority. And sometimes it flips and goes the other way, an illusion of superiority. So this is really where specialness plays out in the mind. And the example that I think for me is so widespread is when two people disagree on a point. And the desire to feel like I'm right, the desire to be right, which makes someone else wrong. And therefore, I'm making an illusion out of the other person because I've assigned them wrong. They're wrong. I'm right. That difference. And many times when we do these things, you can begin to see how it's not clear in your conscious mind how all this is really the implications here, especially to your spiritual being, because all this ideas of specialness floods the mind and hijacks your attention so that your higher purpose and your commonality, your equality with the other person is lost. This is how specialness becomes a dictator of the wrong decisions in relationships. David?
Would it be possible for you to hate your brother if you were like him?
No.
Could you attack him if you realized you journey with him to a goal that is the same?
No.
Would you not help him reach it in every way you could if his attainment of it were perceived as yours?
Yes.
You are his enemy in specialness, his friend in a shared purpose. Specialness can never share, for it depends on goals that you alone can reach. And he must never reach them, or your goal is jeopardized. Can love have meaning where the goal is triumph?
No.
And what decision can be made for this that will not hurt you?
None. I don't know. I think it's pretty clear. The line it really comes down to, and here's where the healing comes. If you realized you journey with the other person to a goal that is the same, then these ideas of specialness and enemies and triumphing fade, and we share a common goal. This is really a message of sharing, and specialness is a barrier to sharing. Didn't we read in the very beginning that love is extension? It wants to be shared, but specialness can never share because it depends on differentiation, different goals. So here's the philosophic way to look at this, is we all are here for the same purpose. We're all here to heal and to love and be loved. And I know that in the midst of a trigger or a difference of opinion, all that can be easily forgotten. But especially when you then go off by yourself and pray, remember, we are all here for the same purpose. And these flare-ups that are often short-lived are really just learning opportunities along the way and should not be given the power. They only have power when they remain hidden. This is why we go and often pray, so that those things which were hidden to our mind is no longer hidden, so that we can be honest in the presence of Holy Spirit and see things as they are, see these hidden beliefs of inequality, and have them exchanged for a sense of a shared purpose. And from there, receive the healing which is rightfully ours. Comments on that, any of that? We'll go on.
Your brother is your friend because his father created him like you. There is no difference. You have been given to your brother that love might be extended, not cut off from him. What you keep is lost to you. God gave you and your brother himself. And to remember this is now the only purpose that you share. And so it is the only one you have. Could you attack your brother if you chose to see no specialness of any kind between you and him? Look fairly at whatever makes you give your brother only partial welcome, or would let you think that you are better off apart. Is it not always your belief your specialness is limited by your relationship? And is not this the enemy that makes you and your brother illusions to each other?
I don't have any comments because I was distracted with a technical matter here. So I'm being honest. David, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think this is an incredible paragraph because, and I'm going to relate it very much to my personal relationship with someone. And sometimes I would think that I'm better off apart from somebody, and I choose to see differences rather than the same. Mm-hmm. And when I focus on the same, I see my brothers and sisters as me, and I can love the other person. Yes. When I see them as different from me, as separate from me, then I judge, and then I withdraw, and we're illusions to each other, and I'm trapped in ego. And this paragraph speaks to me about that.
That's really, thank you, David, for sharing that. That's really a good illustration of this idea of level confusion, because it's really about how you look at yourself and the other person in those times. And miracles help to clarify all that. So we realize all our brothers were created alike. We all share the same purpose. Doesn't mean we're perfect in our time-space activities, but in matters that are really important, we share the common purpose together. And so a miracle rearranges all that confusion and makes the levels clear. And I think you just illustrated how that works, David. Kim?
So I'm feeling, there's an echo.
I think I got it. Yeah.
Did you pick up on that too?
Yeah. Well, that's my role as technologist here. I manipulate controls.
Okay. All right. Very good. So I'm feeling a lot better about some things that I have been going through, because what has been happening to me is when I am in a situation, it's very easy for me to extend love and feel love. But when I walk away from a situation, and sometimes it'll even be like in the middle of the night, something about the situation will literally wake me up, and I'll be troubled and bothered and not even have awareness of what it is. And so as we're reading through this, I'm seeing that what is happening is in my subconscious, I'm judging a situation and not even aware that it's happening. Like it's not happening in my conscious mind while the thing is occurring.
Yes.
It's happening on a subconscious level. So that kind of speaks to me that I still need healing that I'm not even aware of consciously.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense, Kim. And I want to illustrate something that happened to me, because I'm sharing it to be helpful here. So I first started facilitating Course in Miracle classes at Unity and Stewart in 2015. And it was a 40-minute drive up to Stewart and back. Okay. But that was, the invitation was given. That's where I said yes to. It was a group already existed and all. So I would have these classes that would go really good. And then I would get in the car and drive back home. And Kim, it happened every time. Is what the meeting was lovely, being with the people and sharing the course and everything it was really fulfilling. But when I got in the car and drove back home, the critic would start to go over what had happened, and the least matter that could be found for judgment became the focal point. And it happened, I think you said it was unconscious, Kim. You wake up, it would happen every time. It's not like I planned to pick myself apart in criticism on the way home. It would happen every time. And eventually I realized, my goodness, this is just, ruining not ruining my evening, but really taking it down a notch after having had a good experience. So I don't know what that is, but the fact that you notice it, Kim, healing can begin when it's no longer hidden and you noticed this is not right. Picking apart something that's already happened for the flaws is not right. And I'm sure there are many other examples of that. The point is, try to apply this to your own life, how after an event, some people call this ego backlash. It's not from the course, but they refer to it that it's something really good happens, and then there's a backlash there. The critic comes in. It requires vigilance there. It seemed almost automatic to me, or unconscious. All right, we'll go on here. There we go.
The fear of God and of your brother comes from each unrecognized belief in specialness. For you demand your brother bow to it against his will, and God himself must honor it or suffer vengeance. Every twinge of malice or stab of hate or wish to separate arises here. For here the purpose that you and your brother share becomes obscured from both of you. You would oppose this course because it teaches you and your brother are alike. You have no purpose that is not the same, and none your father does not share with you. For your relationship has been made clean of special goals. And would you now defeat the goal of holiness that heaven gave it? What perspective can the special have that does not change with every seeming blow, each slight or fancied judgment on itself?
Oh my, do you realize what it just said? How profound. So we're going to unpack this line at a time. First of all, the fear of God, which is the final obstacle to peace, chapter 19. The fear of God and of your brother comes from belief in specialness that remains unrecognized. The minute you begin to recognize it, it starts to lose its power. And that's what we're doing tonight, is recognizing this belief in specialness starts to lose its power. And you can then say, Holy Spirit, I just had a special idea here. I'm laying this into your hands because I don't want to remain locked into that battle anymore. So the fear of God is based on that, because it demands your brother bow. It's an enemy. One's better than the other. Here's the line that really got me. Every twinge of malice or stab of hate or wish to separate arises here. I choose to believe that literally, that when those feelings come up, deep underneath that is a relationship that has been seen as different and not equal. And so here's where the holy purpose that you and your brother share becomes obscured, and these beliefs in chaos and enmity displace them in the mind. And very strong language, you would oppose this course because it teaches you and your brother are alike. I remember when I was younger, I used to feel that way. When the course would keep insisting that I and my brother are alike, there was a voice within me that I wasn't proud of, but I could tell. I would say, oh, really? Oh, really? We're alike? I mean, I didn't get it. I was so weighed by the ego's hidden beliefs that loud was the voice of the ego whenever that statement would come up. Susie?
Yeah, I love that sentence too, because, you know, I lived for so long with this conflict with my sister. And then, you know, talk about level confusion. She was so ill for 4 years due to so much in her mind.
Yeah.
And I remember in the beginning of her illness, I wasn't in the course yet. And I thought, oh man, you know, of course this is happening to Judy, you know, and not to me. Or not to me, but there was almost some guilt about that, you know? And I just love that I've come to understand that we are exactly equal. And I would never have known that if not for A Course in Miracles. So it brings me an extraordinary amount of peace and comfort to understand that now, you know, because
Yes.
there's so much conflict.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful for the course.
Thank you. So here's the high level solution is we've been given holy relationship. Holy relationship with everyone else is embedded in the Creator's mind when he created everybody. That all beings would be in loving, holy relationship with one another. That was the thought. So that purpose is already within us. There's no purpose that you and your brother do not share, that your father does not share with you. That purpose is woven into the fabric of our spiritual being. And in that relationship, there are no special goals. And it's a goal of holiness from heaven. And it's that shift into that perspective that makes specialness seem ridiculous. And so it really is this simple. If you can grasp the purpose for which the Creator brought us into existence and sent us here, that purpose is a holy relationship with all things, from that vantage point, then specialness makes no sense at all whatsoever. It's contrary. It's the enemy of love. And so it's easy to dismiss as simply a mistaken belief. Okay, David? Your audio. Looks like you're unmuted. All right, David, we have an audio problem. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, there. Go ahead, David.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we're having trouble here. So I'm going to read it since we're in the last paragraph here. I'm not sure what that is. Those who are special must defend delusions against the truth. For what is specialness but an attack upon the will of God? You love your brother, not while it is this you would this is where I need David here. You love your brother, not while it is this you would defend against him. This is what he attacks and you protect. Here is the ground of battle which you wage against him. Here must he be your enemy and not your friend. Never can there be peace among the different. He is your friend because you are the same.
Hey, Jonica, I just have to say something funny. It's great that we have David's abilities, right?
Yes, yes.
His reading abilities.
Yes. And especially on these, everybody that's read it out loud knows that sometimes there's a word that if you just pause or emphasize it wrong, it changes the entire meaning. It's very subtle that way, more like poetry. And so there I found one. You love your brother not while it is this you would defend against him. Verse, yeah. This is a sour note. So I'm going to choose to back up and focus on this last section here because I would rather us close on this thought that the spiritual plan of creation involved a common cause and a common purpose given to us all. We are all working towards the same goal. You have no purpose that's not the same, and none your Father does not share. And so if you are willing to make this higher purpose your purpose, when you're in a point of confusion for where you're feeling that stab of guilt, a twinge of pain, or loss of peace, it's easy to forget your higher purpose. But what the Course says is that sense of I'm here for a higher purpose will help elevate your understanding. It's a way of undoing level confusion. My purpose is not down here on the battlefield, but to be elevated above the battlefield. If you remember that purpose in those moments, then your purpose will carry you into a better perspective, a better understanding. And that's where healing occurs. Susie?
There's also that next to the last line in the last paragraph where, and it's definitive, right? It says, never can there be peace among the different.
That is,
So, I mean, there it goes. It sums it all up right there.
indeed it does. And then, so how do we understand this? Again, I'm a visual person. I tend to prefer images that I can see in my mind's eye. There is no difference among the spirits that God has created. There is one mind. We are not better minds and worse minds. We all are tied into the mind of God. My mind is very holy. And our bodies are all of the same substance. And so that line that Susie just emphasized, there can be no peace among the different. Don't allow these different levels to confuse your mind into thinking that people are different. Kathy?
I'm glad you went back to this because I have a question and I think you just answered it by what you just said. The mind, I've always thought was part of spirit. So that's what confused me about this. One mind, oneness, we think with God, all of that. Our holy mind is in spirit. That's how I've always thought of it. I get the difference between the mind and the body, but I always thought mind was in spirit.
Yeah, and I can understand how, the Course in Miracles is not a theology, so all these things are not like spelled out on page 1. But let me just recall a few things right away, Kathy, that you know to be true. God created us perfect and eternal and in love. He did not create us split, but united. Well, we know that the mind can split based on false beliefs, based on beliefs of specialness. We know it can learn and change with learning.
Okay.
But spirit, not so.
Spirit doesn't change.
Yeah. So there is a difference here, and it can be illustrated in many passages here. But I think that alone is enough for you to, realize that they are different. So the mind is on a learning journey to where at conclusion of the atonement, the mind will be a worthy companion of spirit. But while it entertains specialness and guilt and chaos, there's still work to be done. That's where the sick mind, all healing is healing of the mind, so that it can become unified with spirit again.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah. Okay, well, we are going to pause it there. And I want to thank David for reading. Thank you all that was our introduction to specialness and the obstacles there. These hidden beliefs, the reason why there was more to be said is that a belief that has remained hidden in your mind for decades of time does not go away based on one review of what it is. So we're going to look at different angles of it as we go forward in the future. And I'll look forward to sharing that together in this lovely group that we have. Thank you all.
Is my microphone working now?
It's good now, yes.
I apologize for that happening. I don't know exactly why.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's quite all
Thank you.
right, David. You're a great service to the group.
Thank you.